Alright, so now I'm going to answer the questions on the U.S. Catholic bishops on persons with disabilities questions. So, first question: why does the Lord call the church to have concern for and serve individuals with disabilities? In what ways does Jesus exemplify this call? So, the church, because persons with disabilities become, for the first part of the question, it's because persons with disabilities become witnesses for Christ. His healing of their bodies is a sign of the spiritual healing he brought to all people. So that's what it said in the reading, and I agree. But he exemplifies it by helping the blind to see and the crippled to walk. But he says also that the first shall be last and the last shall be first. And then kind of just summarize it all up. He always tells us that we ought to love our neighbor as ourselves. So that's kind of the first question. The second question: in what ways do you feel the pastoral statement could be updated and revised? Share at least 2 ways you would like to see the pastoral statement improved. Personally, reading through it, I wouldn't change really much about it at all. Like, I agreed almost with every single word, and even opened my eyes to some different things that I hadn't seen before. But something I would change maybe was the one statement that says mentally retarded in there. I just feel like there's just a better and less negative word to use there. I know it's kind of cliche of me to say that, but I just felt like there was a better way. But also, I felt like maybe instead of changing, they could maybe add or list more ways specifically how individuals with disability ultimately help us more than we even help them. For example, I had a friend in high school who had some form of autism, but he was my best friend since 2nd grade. And, at first it's always just me being nice to him because, he's different and not a lot of people were overly friendly to him or approach him. And so I was always yeah, I'll go and hang out with him. But in the end, he's made such a difference in my life. He's always been there. He's been one of the most faithful friends I've ever had in my entire life. He's made such an impact on my life. And going through these past 2 years of college without him, I just realized how much I miss him and how much I miss his presence and just super warm, welcoming, and big heart of his. So maybe just including stuff like that would be cool. For number 3, what is my response to these statements? I'll answer that first, actually. What is my response to these statements? Do I feel as though the church does a good job with outreach and discipleship of individuals with disabilities? How have you seen this demonstrated in the church? And in what ways do you think the church could grow in this way? So, for the first part, I completely agree with the statements and making accommodations for individuals with disabilities so they may fully participate. You never really notice until, how, I've actually never realized how churches do or don't, if they do or make accommodations for those maybe with wheelchairs or those who can't hear. I've never actually thought about, making accommodations for that in a mass. So I completely agree that the church should, and it's their responsibility to make accommodations for them. For the second part, I do believe that the church has gone out and tried to bring them in for discipleship. It just depends on the church. I mean, I've gone to one, besides the ones here, of course, but I've gone to my hometown and maybe another my sister's in Grand Rapids, and it just depends on church. So, but from my personal experience, I believe the church does so. But we can always improve when it comes to bringing those individuals with disabilities into our church, into our community, and just outreaching to them. And then for the third part, I've seen this demonstrated in 2 ways. First off, there's a boy with some form of autism at my church, but he's kind of nonverbal, but he's also, his mobility and gross motor skills aren't great, but he comes to mass and I love it. He sings so loud and I love when he sings, and he loves to sing. And sometimes the choir will let him sing with them. but also just we always accommodate for him. But he always sits in the front row, so it's easier for him to walk to get the Eucharist and then walk back. But also I've seen this in my sister's church in Grand Rapids, where there was two ladies who couldn't hear, and they had a lady in the front stand right in front of them and just sign the entire Mass. So I thought that was really cool. I've never seen that before. And then the fourth part, I feel we could grow by going out and inviting more in. Like I said this before, because rarely do I ever see individuals with disabilities in the church. I guess that are like glaringly obvious, but I just feel like there could be more. You know, it's hard to explain, but yes, like I feel that we could do a better job bringing them into the church than we do now. Because all I ever see is like maybe 2 or 3, like at most, that at least are obvious to me, you know, but I do feel like the church and us as Catholic Christians could go out and bring them in. And then for the last question, what did I find most interesting about this statement? I found all of it interesting, but what hit me the most was how much Jesus singled out those with disabilities. Like, I've heard these stories 100 times before, again and again, but it never occurred to me that they all, like, that they had a disability of some sort. Like, all of the people he went to or that he chose and singled out all had some form of disability. And I don't know why that never caught my eye, but I just thought that was really interesting and cool. So yeah, thank you.